I guess the most basic question people have is, how can somebody who's under indictment, as your opponent is, how can he get reelected?
You know, it's a question that you're not just asking yourself in your newsroom. I think people in living rooms and dining rooms are asking themselves, how can we vote for somebody who can't follow the law? And how can we expect him to pass laws and enforce laws that he himself can't follow? So it is a question about honor and integrity and real representation. And I think after 40 years of one name holding this district, people are ready for new leadership. So I think a lot of people across the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, are ready for that. And last week's news really tipped the scales for a lot of folks who are ready to vote for new leadership.
So they may be ready for new leadership, but are they ready for your policies? Because this is historically a Republican district, and your policies are decidedly not right of center.
You know, I think that the question is, I've been campaigning for 19 months. You know, I didn't just become a candidate last week. I know a lot of people have been paying attention, but I've been talking to people about what keeps them up at night, what gets them going in the morning, and I've been telling them, you know, we should have a system of health care that looks like what seniors have and what the military has. And that seems to work pretty good. I want to make sure that we have equal pay like the military has. I want to make sure that we have gun safety laws like the military has. And a lot of people in my district are able to make that mental leap and say, you know what, there's a lot of things that work well in our military and other parts of our way of life that we respect. And maybe Ammar is onto something when it comes to people's personal health, their personal safety, their personal financial dignity. We could get past personal politics and talk about the issues that matter most. And I think you're seeing in races all across the country, platforms like mine are actually flipping the unflippable in this last cycle.
Well, we'll see in the general election. We've seen the primaries so far. We really haven't seen much except for a couple of special elections. But what about the economy? Because generally people think that these elections, particularly the midterm elections, are based on pocketbooks and how people are doing. The economy is doing well under Republican administration in Washington. I think most people would agree. The economy is growing. Unemployment is down. What do you say to people who say, why should I switch to Democrats right now to manage this economy?
You know, when we talk about GDP and the stock market, that might be an indicator of economic growth, but the real economy that the people in my district live in, you know, my district is double the unemployment rate of the rest of San Diego County. And it's been that way for quite some time. People have to commute an hour and a half to get to the nearest job. So I want to bring the big city job to that rural area and not the other way around, have people go and travel long distances. I talk to people in my district who are suffering, who are still struggling, and they're not feeling the economic comeback that they helped build over the past decade. So in my district, it's still about the economy. We had a congressman who passed a tax plan, who voted for a tax plan that would hurt California. Don't take my word for it. Hunter himself said this tax plan was going to hurt California, but he didn't want the rest of the country to pay for California's poor policies. But the net effect is that a lot of people are hurting because of those state and local tax deductions, the cap on it. So in my district, people are still hurting. It is about pocketbook issues. And I think a lot of people feel there's a lot to be desired in the leadership of Duncan Hunter when it comes to the economy.
The biggest item of the day, actually, is this new announcement from President Trump that he has a tentative deal with Mexico to deal with trade. He doesn't call it NAFTA or Vision in NAFTA. He says it's a new deal. But whatever it's called, if you were serving in Congress, as you hope to be, what would your position be on this new trade agreement?
I mean, I think it remains to be seen. It's hard to kind of pin down the president and figure out where he's consistent and if he's going to follow through on things. So I'd like to see where he goes. But when it comes to working with anybody in Congress to get the job done, whether it's the president or somebody else, we need to work across the aisle. We need to put country before party. And I'm willing to work with anybody when it comes to jobs, trade, or infrastructure. So I'm willing to work with anybody to get the job done. The question is the president willing to put country before party and lead with our values as a nation and put people first? And that remains to be seen, but I'm optimistic. And as President Barack Obama said when he left office, we should be rooting for the success of his successor as long as he's doing the things that put the country first. So I'm willing to work with the president or anybody to make sure that we could put this country first and move our country and our economy forward.
Putting country above party is certainly something that a lot of people talk about, including the late, great Senator John McCain talked about it. Give me an example of where actually you'd be willing to reach across the aisle. What's a Republican issue, Republican position in the Congress that you'd say, you know what, I think that makes some sense, I'll go with you on that?
You know, when I left the Department of Labor, I wrote President Trump a memo, and I said there's a program that sounds like your TV show. It's called Apprenticeship. It's an earn-while-you-learn program. It pays $70,000 a year, the average apprentice, which is what is double the individual median income in America. And I said, why don't we double down and triple down and really focus our efforts and invest $1 billion a year, not just $90 million a year, on putting every person who wants a job back to work. There's 6.7 million job vacancies. There's more job vacancies today than people looking for work. So if we want to help people earn more so they could afford health care, afford education, afford everything else, why don't we have people make more means? So I'd be willing to work with Republicans on this bipartisan issue.